This is Jessica Shaw, and welcome to the Pop Culture Spotlight. Every day, right here on Sirius XM Stars, you can hear my interviews with some of the biggest names in pop culture. These are my conversations with the casts and creatives behind the best shows, movies, and more. I'm Jessica Shaw, and this is the Pop Culture Spotlight.
Welcome to the Pop Culture Spotlight on Sirius XM. I'm Jessica Shaw. I am so beyond thrilled. I've been looking forward to this interview for a while now to be joined by Mickey Rapkin, who many people know as a writer. No biggie. He wrote the book Pitch Perfect, on which the films were based, a nonfiction book, no less, a great journalist, and the writer-director of a short film called The Anne Frank Gift Shop. Yes, you heard that right. The Anne Frank Gift Shop that is available. We're going to talk about just where it is available because I've seen it multiple times. It is a very dark comedy. It is also one of the most moving and thought-provoking things that I've seen, and I can't recall a time I have thought more after watching a short film. So writer-director Mickey Rapkin, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me and for saying such nice things about the film.
It's so true. I mean, the title alone, I'm guessing when you're like, yeah, so I wrote and directed this short film, The Anne Frank Gift Shop, and you must get a lot of like people with instant whiplash saying, what?
People, when you say the title, people do react. They do make a face. I would say always make a face. But then I quickly followed up with like, there's it's a dark comedy. It's really the aim of the movie is to get young people talking about the Holocaust. There are bad jokes, but I promise you at the end, there's a vital, timely message.
Yes. And we should say the film is about literally a marketing meeting on. Go ahead. Why don't you explain it?
So the film imagines this meeting between the Anne Frank house and this New York design firm they've hired to help them renovate the gift shop to appeal to young people. And yeah, so it was sort of inspired by a few years ago. There was this study. It was sort of the first 50-state study of the Holocaust education in the United States and among Gen Z and millennials. And the findings were horrifying. It was like 2/3 of young Americans couldn't tell you how many Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. 11% somehow thought Jews actually caused the Holocaust. It made like international headlines. And the film sort of aims to use this comedic language that young people use and kind of disarm them with comedy so that you can sort of at the end sort of slide in this message, which is, we just have to keep telling the story any way we can again and again and again, or this will happen again.
Yeah. And it's so funny because there is this meeting, this room, and there are people from the design firm. Like you said, there are a couple people representing the museum, and there is an influencer who is like at one point talking about options for things that could be in the gift shop, including like if you have a picture of Anne, if you could just like turn up so she is smiling a little bit more because the algorithm on social, like on TikTok or whatever, the algorithm like smiles.
Exactly. And the sort of people from the museum are obviously horrified. We cannot. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. We came up, me sitting down, with my absurd brain, we sort of came up with these, what things could you pitch?
Yes.
Someone in the meeting pitches, says, the most common question that people ask when they come to the Anne Frank house is who betrayed Anne Frank? And we should do a podcast that people can listen to while they're waiting in line. And, someone in the meeting is like, are you pitching a murder podcast? And it just sort of goes from there of, this guy from the museum is sort of horrified and he's like, what are you going to pitch next? Like a bookshelf, like a collaboration with IKEA?
Yeah.
Like it's really, the jokes sort of come quickly at you. And I really, we played at the LA, we had our world premiere at the LA Shorts Festival a few weeks ago in LA. And, these festivals, I mean, you've covered festivals before, you know how it is. The audience is a total mix of people. They've come to see, it's a night of 7 shorts. They've come for whatever reason, you don't know who they are. And to sit in the audience and listen and watch them. No one introduces the film. No one says what it is. No one preps them like this is a dark comedy. Nothing. It just comes on. Mm-hmm. And I was sort of sitting there like slunk down in my chair like, oh my, how is this going to go over? And as soon as there was one big laugh, I had a big sigh of relief.
Yes.
But they were, you could hear a pin drop the influencer gives a sort of big emotional speech in the middle of the movie, and you could hear a pin drop. And of course, it's buttoned by a big joke, but I really felt like when the movie ended that the message really came through.
Is there truth in that story?
That story is 100% true.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. I won't spoil any of it because it's an important part of the film. But yes, it is. There's a very moving story right in the middle.
Every fact in the film is true. Mm-hmm. Everything that someone says in the film, about whether it's about Anne or whether it's about the house, or even down to there's a joke about people leaving Yelp reviews of the Anne Frank house, which is it's like this. Someone in the meeting says, who would leave a Yelp review of Anne Frank's, which is insane. There's 665 reviews. Some of them are 1 star.
And isn't one of them that the attic's pretty big, or
definitely people. There are some comments that are the attic is bigger than you think,
right?
But it's sort of wild. But then someone makes a joke, actually this quote that's not from a Yelp review, that's Condé Nast Traveler. Everything in the movie is true.
You'll never get another assignment from them now.
Probably not. But yeah, it was really important to me that listen, it's not an educational film by any means, but it was important to me that everything in the film be true.
Yeah.
So that the message comes across.
Yeah, because it forces you to confront how we get our information as a public, and how we distill it, and the lens through which we view things.
And I do want to say, one of the reasons that I think it was so successful in these screenings so far is the cast. We have this amazing cast. We have Ari Graynor, who has been in everything.
Yes.
Mrs. America, a billion things. So funny. Chris Perfetti, who's so funny on Abbott Elementary every week. He's so good in this.
He is
so funny, and then breaks your heart.
Yeah, I was going to say everyone is wonderful in this, and who plays the influencer? Because she's
influencer
everyone
is so funny. Her name's Mary Beth Barone. She's a comedian. She was on Fallon doing her stand-up. She has a podcast called Ride. She's so funny. She has 100,000 followers. She brought such a youthful energy, but also really a smarts. She's really intelligent, both her and the fun thing of this character is yes, she's an influencer and you want to laugh at her, but she did the homework. She
Right.
comes with something to say. She's bringing a youthful perspective.
Yeah, Chris, who you mentioned, who is on Abbott Elementary and is hilarious, and I think a lot of people have seen him before. He brings something to this that is so stunning, that is so I can't even. I mean, there's sort of a through line of the film where his dad is calling him, and it's just, he delivers so much kind of comedic exasperation, and also so much heart that it's really lovely.
When I was editing the movie, I edited with this guy, Tim Nackashi, who is great. And we, you sit there for hours and hours, and we spent a week, watching every single take from every angle. And I feel like I could have used any one of those takes from Chris. I've seen him in a million plays in New York. He's such a good actor, and really, he's heartbreaking at the end.
Mm-hmm.
When he gives this big, ultimately, after the film kind of takes a more serious turn, he just delivers this beautiful speech. And I cried on the day. It was really stunning.
How was it when you all were in, because it all takes place in one room,
Yes.
for the most part,
Yes.
maybe, and were there conversations about this? Did you do read-throughs and sort of talk about okay, this is a joke we can definitely hit, or this is, or someone saying I don't know, this feels weird to me, or
I had a great DP. Her name's Chloe Weaver. She has done an episode of The Hacks, and she did a great episode of The Bear for season 2. She's such a talent. I was so lucky to work with her. But she and I sat down and talked a bunch about basically, when you're filming mostly in one room, whether it's a dinner party scene, whatever it is, it can be very tedious because you're just sort of shooting over everybody's shoulder. So you just do it again and again and again. The camera goes around the table. So the actors have to do it a lot, and it can get repetitive. And we just talked about kind of the way they do in Succession, the camera's going to find the joke, it's going to find that funny reaction. So when Chris has a gulp, a funny kind of gulp, we're going to make sure we get that. And we were lucky we had 2 cameras. So one could sort of be on the action, and then one could be looking for the funny reaction shots. But yeah, and then there's such great comedians. Josh Meyers is in it, who was on Mad TV forever. So funny. And he had actually lived in Amsterdam. He plays one of the Dutch representatives. He'd actually lived in Amsterdam. And there were a couple points in the movie where it's just like, okay, just riff, just throw out some lines. And he just had some hilarious, like, we had this, about the bookshelves and IKEA.
His pronunciation of IKEA is...
When he says IKEA, we were laughing so hard. But he pitched a million things, like Campbell's Chunky Soup. Like, there's a whole conversation like, is Anne Frank a brand?
Yes.
And, which is really interesting. And he's like, like a brand like Campbell's Chunky Soup. Like, he threw out a million things that were making me laugh. I just like, there was a great chemistry of the cast, and we really just had so much room to play, even though, we're only shooting on 2 days and we were worried about COVID and, all these things, and you're just trying to get it done.
Yeah.
But we found time to play and have fun with it. And it was such a beautiful experience with them.
Who was your litmus test? Who was your okay, let me make sure, I think this is funny. And because I also have a very dark sense of humor. And there are times where I feel like I will say something and then I have to be like, ooh, can I say this in front of this person?
There were definitely times where I was worried that we were pushing the jokes too far. And in the editing, I ended up cutting some jokes, not because any one joke was more offensive than the next, just the pile up of 3 jokes in a row somehow felt worse. But I had some readers for the script. There was a professor at Stanford. He read a bunch of drafts that we talked about, which was super helpful. And then one of our producers who came on a few days before filming, she's a film producer in New Jersey, Jane Sinisi. She's actually the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. And I was looking for more funding, and a friend, put me in touch with her anyway. And I sort of was like the moment of truth, like, oh my God, I'm going to send my Holocaust jokes to the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, who I'm also asking for money to help me make this film. And I just sort of hit, you hit send, and you're just like the dripping sweat down the back.
And then you run in circles because you're I don't know what to do with myself. Yeah.
Staring at my phone like a lunatic. And she emailed back the next day. She basically was like, this film is so moving. I laughed out loud. And this is a vital story. We need to tell these kinds of stories. And I just had both a huge sigh of relief because we really needed the money, but also because it felt like a seal of approval.
Yes.
Like, if she thinks this is funny and that this message is important and it's coming through, it was great. And I mean, not to break news, but we did just last week show it to the Anne Frank House. I had done some press for the film. We started to play some festivals. We won Best Narrative Short at the San Francisco Jewish Film Festival. And
wasn't our vice president there or something?
Nancy Pelosi was there.
Okay, all right.
She's a few steps away, a few heartbeats away. Great blue pantsuit.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing that she was in the audience that night. But anyway, so I get this LinkedIn message from the Anne Frank House, and I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
And it says, we've heard about your film. We are very intrigued. We would love to see it. And I talked to the producers and was like, we knew obviously at some point we would have to show them the film, which is fine. I really feel like even though we make these jokes, we're all obviously on the same side. We all are here to tell Anne's story and to continue this conversation. But anyway, we sort of just, decided let's just rip off the Band-Aid and send it to them. Yes. So I sent it, and then for 2 days, just dripping sweat, heart palpitations. Every morning I would wake up, because of the time difference. I was like, well, where's this? Anyway, they finally wrote back, very much enjoyed the film, really feel like it's a vital message. And I was so relieved. They're like, apply to this Dutch film festival. We can do an event together, maybe.
Wow.
So I just felt like a huge relief.
Well, which leads me into, first of all, how was it sitting there with Nancy Pelosi watching your film?
We actually didn't watch. They didn't screen it that night. They just, it was the awards ceremony.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, even so.
But I did have to sit there while they said, the Anne Frank gift shop.
Yes.
And then I'm sort of looking over my shoulder. Thankfully, we were too far away to see her reaction. It was at a big, beautiful theater, the Castro Theater in San Francisco.
Oh, yes, it is beautiful.
But no, seeing it with, and then also seeing it at that Jewish film festival was a totally different experience. It was an older crowd, and basically every time I show it, I'm nervous, because you don't know if what kind of reaction they're going to have.
Right.
And I just don't want them to walk out and miss. The movie's meant for young people. I want everyone to see it, but it was made for and is meant for young people, and not to educate them, but to get to continue this conversation.
But even if you're not young, it's so you don't have to be Gen Z to know totally. That's how that is how the conversation goes about everything. The umbrella is big of how we are going, what can be addressed on TikTok and stuff. It's not, it's not just vapid.
Yeah, I think it's a reminder sort of for everybody. The point that we're making with the film is there's kind of no wrong way to tell this story.
Yeah.
Just keep telling it. And if that means Anne Frank has to be on TikTok, so be it. Just keep telling the story. Because, the scary thing is we're losing the survivors. There's not many survivors left. World War II ended 80 years ago. And it's kind of it's not ancient history. Right. If Anne was still alive, she would be 3 years younger than Mel Brooks. Anne, she could still be writing. Mel Brooks is still working.
Yeah. Anne
Frank could still be writing. The Wizard of Oz is older than the Holocaust.
Right.
Anne Frank maybe saw the Wizard of Oz. That. This is a woman who is of our lifetime.
Yes.
So we just need to keep this conversation going so people don't forget. Because we're losing survivors.
We're losing survivors. We're gaining deniers.
Exactly. I mean, it's such a scary time of people not believing facts.
Yes. Yeah. Where can people see this film? Because not everyone lives near a film festival. Not everyone, so I love it so much. I really, like I said, I was so moved by it, and it was so funny and so clever, and the performances are so great. I want people to be able to see it.
Yes, I do too. We have, it's going to play in Los Angeles for a week as part of a sort of festival of shorts called, Shorts by the Sea, something like that in Santa Monica in September. I think September 15th for a week. And then...
Sounds very Nancy Meyers.
Totally. And we should invite Nancy Meyers.
You should, yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Total tangent, but I'll tell you only because you just mentioned her. I was once taken to a holiday party at Nancy Meyers' house when I first moved to LA 11 years ago. And it was... It was exactly what you wanted to be.
I was just going to say, it better be everything I wanted it to be.
It was everything. First, Goldie Hawn was there, which was amazing. But the spread in the kitchen...
Which is probably the most gorgeous kitchen ever.
The kitchen was beautiful. The pies were enormous.
Yeah.
Okay? A massive pecan pie, massive pumpkin pies. I was losing my gay mind.
Yes.
It was everything I wanted to be.
I just feel how is the couch? I just feel she always has
everything was
couches.
white. This is what I remember.
Yes.
Of course, everything is white. But this is what I remember. She had all white candy canes.
Oh, of course she did.
Which I felt that is exactly what you would expect at Nancy Meyers' house.
100%.
Only white candy canes.
She's get out of here. You
take that hideous red out. I want all white chic.
God, I love her.
Anyway, so we're gonna play there at that, and then we're waiting on other festivals for the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And then ideally, we'll sell to someone who can put it on a streaming platform.
Right.
And we're just, in the middle of the writer's strike, so you can't sell anything. But I really hope, the response has been so, exciting isn't the right word, but affirming.
Yeah.
And I really feel the comedy lands and the message and the heart come through. And hopefully, we'll play a bunch more festivals this fall. And then in the spring, we'll be able to have some sort of wide release.
Yeah, I hope so. I can't wait for everyone to see this. And absolutely, if you are near the festival in LA or any other ones that I'm sure you will be
Yes,
playing
look for our not our TikTok. We're on Instagram, the Anne Frank Gift Shop.
You better get on TikTok.
I know, I have to. Yeah, I'm like, we're on Reels, but we're on Instagram at the Anne Frank Gift Shop. So you can just look up there, and then any upcoming events will all be there.
Perfect. Yes, Instagram, the Anne Frank Gift Shop, and it's if you have a chance to see it, find a chance to see it. Find a way to see it. It's that good. Mickey Rapkin, writer director of the Anne Frank Gift Shop. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.